Pikachu!
My friend Whitty, or Whittle Goblin, designed a very cool game, PokeThirst, published by Blacksite Studios. It's a battle royale style game based on vampires with plenty of awesome sculpts. It's primarily a mini agnostic game though. Feel free to use whatever you want. Which of course led us to joking about making vampire Pokemon for a grand showdown at Adepticon. Well, it's no longer a joke. I'm throwing down the gauntlet. First up for this transformation was Pikachu. Pikachu here already had some angry eyes, but I felt like reinforcing it with stronger brows. This would also serve as a sort of landmark to help with painting the eyes later on. Something about this pose screamed cape to me. Might as well go with over-the-top, stereotypical vampire vibes if we're making vampire Pokemon. Mixed up some green stuff for this. Green stuff feels pretty tough and stretchable, even when it's thin. It seemed like it would make a good cape. I don't know, I'm just figuring this out as I go. I squished and rolled the green stuff into a shape I was happy with, using the knife to cut it into a final shape. Then stretched it into place around the arms and neck, trying to get it to drape in an interesting way. Finally, Pikachu needed some vampy teeth. In my recent exploits into sculpting, whenever I have some leftover putty, I've been rolling it into teeth and claws, so after making a little extra room in the mouth, I cut down a couple of the cured teeth and glued them in place. Now Squirtle here felt like a refined gentleman, reminiscent of Gary Oldman in Bram Stoker's Dracula. So I gave him a walking stick, complete with an opulent gem on top. Then cut a couple of spots for fangs and glued them in place. To make some old-worldy cobblestone bases, I mixed up some milliput and smoothed it out over the base, not really worrying about it being particularly even. Then, grabbing my favorite sculpting tool, a toothpick, I started sketching out some irregular rectangles. I tried to keep the pattern quite random, attempting to make it look a little more natural. With everything cured, and these little dudes attached to their bases, it was time for some paint. The objective here was to stay with their traditional colors, albeit considerably more pale and desaturated, give it that undead sort of look. Of course, I still wanted to start with some fun color, and a slightly desaturated purple seemed to fit both of these dudes. I opted to hose them down entirely with dark purple, and followed that up with a heavy zenithal of alien purple. This gave me a rough roadmap of where to place highlights, immediately creating some visual interest. Grabbing the brush, I mixed some alien purple into moon yellow, as well as a little pale yellow to start on Pikachu. I'll often mix a small amount of the underpainted color into the first layer or layers. I just find it helps create a more cohesive finish. Rather than some buttery smooth layers and transitions, I went full calf. Sketchy brushstrokes, leaving the recesses untouched, as well as random patches and lines here and there. I am rarely careful when painting, and I was particularly haphazard here. Adding more and more pale yellow to the base mix, I generally painted smaller and smaller surfaces. As I said though, I wasn't particular about staying within the confines of said areas, allowing for some brushstrokes to stray here and there, which I feel adds to the overall look I'm going for. Like it could be a real thing, just one sketched by a child. As always, I'm not blending here. No layers of translucent glazes, just sketchy lines. Now if you want some beautiful, smooth painting, check out my friend Zambi's. She just painted a Stitch and it is wonderful. As I said, PokeThirst is a battle royale game, with players each taking control of a vampire and trying to feed off of the different citizens walking around the board, and potentially each other. It's fun and strategic with some great mechanics. If that sounds like your thing, check out the link in the description. I've got no affiliation with Blacksite Studios. In fact, neither Blacksite nor Witty know I'm doing this. It's just a fun game that you might enjoy. Anyways, on to some of the details on Pikachu here. One tip I have with freehand work is to make sure your paint is thin enough to readily flow from your bristles. The exact amount of thinning is kinda hard to say, most likely though, thinner than you think. Squirtle, the refined gentleman bloodsucker, needed some bluish skin. I started with sky blue, once again mixing in some alien purple and some pale yellow, continuing to add more pale yellow as I painted less surface. As with Pikachu, I left the recesses untouched and generally made the skin a bit splotchy, with some areas getting better coverage than others. Maybe it's a creative choice, or maybe just a crutch for mediocre painting. Either way, I enjoy painting like this. I will say this all the time. Paint in a way that brings you joy and makes you happy. This is a hobby after all. We've all got a limited amount of time in which to do it. There are just so many different ways to create finished minis. Play around, mess around and find out. Determine the techniques that you enjoy and have fun. Most of all, never do something simply because you saw a video telling you to, especially if it was me. For Squirtle's eyes, I first sketched out the shape with black, then filled it in. I had taken a photo of this dude before I started, so I could reference the eyes. Rather than the red he's typically got, I went with yellow. I don't know, I guess it felt more sinister, and it matched the walking stick. Then mapped out the white of the eyes, and some specular highlights, and it was time for bases. To keep the cobblestones rather purple, I mixed in quite a bit of alien purple into neutral gray, then started sketching on some texture and volumes, adding progressively more light gray as I built the volumes. With stones like this, I really don't think too much, and just let the brushstrokes fall where they may. I find the randomness kind of works for natural things like stone. Well, here you go, Witty. A couple of Pokevamps ready for PokeThirst. The ultimate Adepticon challenge. I think these dudes are super fun. Who knows? Maybe I'll do up some others. What Pokemon do you want to see in PokeThirst? Who else should be involved in this challenge? Let me know in the comments below. And remember, you are awesome. Thanks for watching.